All right. Well, why don't we get started? Welcome to the Dashboard Dojo. Today in the dojo, we're going to talk about how to drive adoption for your reports and dashboards. So if it's your first time to the dojo, this is a place to learn the way. I spent about 3 years in Japan and just loved visiting dojos for different martial arts and loved seeing people of all ages working together on improving their skills. People of all skill sets working together, and just a great experience. We have over 30 hours of recordings now, and they're available on the Dashboard Dojo site. The last session is up that we did on Salesforce Mobile reporting. It's a topic we'll talk about today as well. All right, so we'll just do quick introductions. We'll run through a list of different techniques and topics related to driving adoption. I don't think we have any upcoming OpFocus events, though we'll do something at the World Tour in New York in December. We also have an upcoming hands-on reporting workshop. We'll talk about some upcoming dojo topics. Please go ahead and use the chat for Q&A along the way. All right, Michelle's on board. Great. Look forward to seeing you in New York, Michelle. Awesome. All right, so who am I? My name is David Carnes. I'm the chairman of OpFocus. I started the company. I quit my job, bought a laptop, and started OpFocus in 2006. It's been a long ride. It's been a lot of fun. This past weekend, I was out in Seattle, and I hired a seaplane. And let's see if you can see the video. Flew by. That's Mount Rainier that was there on the left, and it was amazing. It was so cool to be up flying on up and around Mount Rainier. So Mount Rainier it's very close to the ocean, or I guess to the inlet, the Puget Sound. It's close to sea level, and it's 14,000 feet covered with snow. It's beautiful. So OpFocus, we're a consulting shop. We work with SaaS companies to optimize revenue operations. And we have Kyle Shagnon, OpFocus's events manager. Thank you, Kyle, for helping host today's session.
Always a pleasure.
All right, let's dive in. Whoops, not run the video again. So I've got a long list of stuff. This is sort of a laundry list of topics for how to drive adoption for reports and dashboards. And one of the first things, and probably have said this in half of the dashboard dojos, is getting the report and dashboard permissions correct. Only 4 out of about 30 report and dashboard permissions are assigned to the standard user profile by default. That means 26 of them just aren't assigned out, and that impacts a lot of reporting features within Lightning. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about cleaning up the report and dashboard tabs. We did a dojo on that earlier in the year. I think it was the most popular dojo this year. We'll talk about organizing the report and dashboards tab, which is different slightly than cleaning up the report and dashboard tabs. Talk about favorites. We'll talk about managing real estate on your reports. We'll talk about report descriptions, dashboard component, using the titles, subtitles, and footers. And then just some other sort of suggestions, such as asking to sit in meetings. That's a very powerful way of driving adoption and just understanding what the needs are within your user base. Let's talk about embracing trending. It's probably the most powerful thing that most of us aren't doing in our reporting. I don't think a lot of executives know how to articulate the need for trending, but they absolutely need to see, is it getting better or is it getting worse, especially in a down economy like we're in right now. We've done a couple of dojo sessions, and I have the links to the recordings for those about trending. We can also embed analytics. We did a dojo on that earlier this year. Got the link for that. You might also encourage people to use the mobile app to access reports and dashboards. With the Winter 23 beta, for enhanced reports, it's really quite good, and it's worth that especially if you have a mobile workforce, or you have executives roaming around. Finally, I thought to show you something that's newer, which is called InApp Guidance, and we can create custom prompts within tabs, such as the Reports tab, the Dashboards tab, or the Analytics tab. We can have prompts that just remind users of things they might take advantage of, such as favorites or search or whatever. So this is what we're going to talk about today. It's a long list. So getting the permissions right.
David, did you want to do a poll?
Oh, sorry, I forgot about the poll. Thank you, Kyle. what would I do without you? Let's go ahead and do the poll. I'm very curious for adoption within your user base for all the reports and dashboards you create. Approximately what percent of those are used? So go ahead, Kyle.
All right.
So if you guys would answer the poll. 25%, ouch. 50%. So what percentage of the reports and dashboards you create do you actually think get used? Oh, this is brutal, but sort of predictable. All right, we have none that say all of them and none that say they ignore my creations completely, none that say 10%. All right, so I feel like we can probably do better. Thank you for sharing that, Kyle.
Of course.
I feel like we can probably do better, and this is why we're going to talk about this stuff today. And did you already share the results?
Yes.
Okay, great. So it's half of the respondents said 50%. So 50% said 50%. All right, so getting the permissions right. This is absolutely the most important thing. I think a lot of us don't even realize that our users don't have permissions to subscribe to dashboards, or if they are super users, to change dashboard colors. So I would think of users in three groups: end users, managers, and then your report and dashboard super users. And I'd suggest that you make sure that they have the right permissions. So there's a QR code up in the top right corner of the slide. Quite a few of the slides have QR codes like that. What it takes us to is a blog article that I wrote a couple years ago. Many of you have seen this before. But basically what I did was I went through all those permissions and said, what should end users have? What should managers have? What should report and dashboard super users have? And then just listed them all out, and then talked about how to use either profiles or permission sets. So if you're not a sysadmin in your org, you might need to just, bring like this, bring this to your bring this article to your sysadmin and say, hey, we need to do some work on permissions within our org. So if your users can't use the features, well, the rest of the stuff doesn't really matter. Let's just say it that way. And that's why I talk about it first. So cleaning up the report and dashboard tab, this was the most popular Dōjō of this year. There's a link to that recording up in the top right, the QR code. Basically in that Dōjō, we walked through, and I had basically gone through 12 years or more of OpFocus reports and dashboards and cleaned them up. And it was just eye-opening. It's like the cobbler's kids not having shoes. We're a consulting shop. We just eat, sleep, and breathe Salesforce all day. And we have a bunch of crap on our report and dashboard tabs too, just like everybody else. It's just not a high priority. So we had 2,200 reports and 119 report folders, and 2/3 of the reports hadn't been run in a year. And half of the reports hadn't been run for more than 2 years. Well, that's the stuff that happens when you have a 12-year-old org. There were actually reports that had never been run the org that were more than 10 years old. It was pretty funny. And the same, we had 79 dashboards, 34 dashboard folders. And you're probably wondering, like, how did I get all these numbers? Well, what I did was I got organized in Excel sheets. I exported the list of reports. There's two ways to do it. You could create a report on your reports, and that's available in the administrator's list of report types. You can create a report on reports, or you can use the data loader and export your list of reports. Either way, you want to do that first. And the reason is that there's a column with the report last run date, and that's where I'm getting the last run greater than 2 years ago and last run greater than 1 year ago. You want to do the export before you start looking at old reports, because that's going to overwrite the last run date. So I would export that to Excel, get a little organized in Excel. You might share the document. You might socialize the cleanup of that. If there's a department that has hundreds of reports, maybe work with the head of that department and say, what is it that you really need among this? Another sort of list of things you might think about are removing old App Exchange apps, removing dashboards. I would suggest removing dashboards first, because if you have reports that are sourcing dashboards, you need to remove the dashboards first. Another thing that sort of often gets overlooked is folders. And it's like, are the folders even necessary? Are they named correctly? And then probably most importantly, are they shared correctly? And a lot of us have old folders that aren't shared with anyone, and they're just sort of sitting there like, old stuff in the attic. Probably the thing that nobody gets around to is cleaning up the custom report types. And we talk about that a little bit in this, that Dōjō session from the spring. So that QR code up in the top right is to a recording, and that all the recordings are available on the Dashboard Dōjō site on the recordings tab. So this, I just kept tabs of this effort, and we were able to get rid of something like 60% or 75% of the reports. We were able to get rid of a huge number of the dashboards, and it just felt lighter afterwards. So another related thing that you might do after cleaning up the report and dashboards tab is actually organizing the reports and dashboards tab. And you can see here over, this is just in one of my Dōjō dev orgs, that I've got folders with the same name or similar names. I probably could, and I've got a Dōjō folder. So, like I could probably organize these better and make it easier for people to navigate. So you might, like with the last tab, delete empty folders. You might consolidate embedded reports and dashboards into a system folder. So we'll talk about embedded analytics a little bit later. You might review and update the folder naming. The business, your organization might have changed. You might have had a reorg. Some of these folders might use old department names and things like that. You might come up with a naming scheme so that if you are in multiple geographies, all of the Asia Pacific reports are prepended with APAC, all of those folders, and the European ones are prepended with EMEA, something like that, and then they'll just appear in chunks in the folders list. But really, it's the sharing that matters. And a lot of us forget that if we change around the role hierarchy, or if we have a lot of sharing with individual users or sharing with public groups, that we actually need to sort of prune that every now and then to make sure that people are seeing what they expect to see. Probably the number one thing is the opposite of what you'd think, which is your senior most executives, like your CEO or OpFocus's CEO, she doesn't need to see every report in the system. She absolutely does not want to see every report or every dashboard. She should just see the folders that have the stuff that will help her run the business. When you're using nested folders, so a lot of us have orgs that predate Lightning, like OpFocus. And in the olden days in Classic, there was no nesting. And then with the move to Lightning, they introduced nesting of folders within Lightning. We can nest folders 4 levels deep. The one consideration with that, so if you create a global sales folder, and then you have Asia Pacific sales and European sales and North American sales as subfolders, the topmost level folder controls the sharing for all the subfolders. So it's one sort of consideration when sort of reorganizing things, getting excited about folders with subfolders, the nesting, that may not solve your need. You may actually need to have the next level down to control the sharing. So Asia Pacific sales only sees Asia Pacific sales reports, for example. All right. So another thing that probably, the users don't often figure out this stuff on their own. Favorites is really a great introduction that came with Lightning, allowing users to create up to 200 shortcuts, and they can create shortcuts for reports, dashboards, folders, individual records, list views, a whole bunch of stuff. You can favorite apps, but with reporting, they might favorite individual reports, individual dashboards, and even report or dashboard folders. Now, when they create these favorites, they can manage the favorites. So you can see up here, I've got a screenshot with the star. So at any point, you can click on the down arrow and you can see your own list of personal favorites. You can see the icons to the left. So the green one here is for a report. These sort of gaugy looking things in red are for dashboards. I've got an accountant here. I've got an app in this particular screenshot. Just clicking on any one of the favorites will run the favorite. So it's like a shortcut. The same is true when you use the tabs. So both the reports and the dashboards tab will embed 5 favorites. I think it's 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right within the tab, the caret here, that pull down, so you can quickly get to your favorites. one of the features that's not well known is that you can relabel favorites, and you could do sort of silly things. So if I come into my org here, and why don't I go just show you this on the, if I click on the down arrow here, I've got access to my global sales quarter to date. I can do the same thing with my dashboards. I've got my key performance indicators, whatever I want to, sort of quickly get access to. You can't, as a sysadmin, you can't do this on behalf of someone else, but you can teach them to do it, and then they'll have it available. Sometimes I'll even lean over someone's shoulder. I guess so few of us are in offices these days, but we might have, before all this virtual work, leaned over someone's shoulder and said, let's favorite this and this and this for you. So it's really easy to access. So we do have the ability to manage. So I can see anything that is favorited. The star will show up highlighted here. I can click on this to basically unfavorite the item. If I want to come in and manage my other favorites, I can access the a top list of them here. It looks like I can scroll down and access a lot of them. I can search through them. But what we can also do is come down to edit favorites. I can reorder them. So if this dashboard is like the most important dashboard for the head of sales, I could do that. And of course, it's a service manager dashboard. So if it's the most important one for the head of service, but I could also, come over here with the pencil and I could say, this is the one you need. And again, I'd have to log in as them to be able to set this for them. But this will be essentially relabeled. It's still a dashboard, and it's sort of an unusual thing that an individual user can do, but this is what it appears. I moved it up to the top and I have favorited it. So we can also manage favorites directly within the list. I can go down to any item here and I can favorite or unfavorite a report. I can do the same with dashboards. All right. These are searchable. These are also respected on the mobile app. So especially if someone has access to hundreds of reports or hundreds of dashboards on mobile, they can just zero right in on the favorites, which is nice. All right, so that's training users on the favorites. Another tip for driving adoption is to manage real estate. So every column matters. Just real estate is precious, right? So we don't want to be sloppy with unimportant columns. And each time you use a report type, so let's say we go create a new report like this screenshot here, and we choose opportunities, there are a bunch of columns that you just don't care about that are thrown in there. And there's kind of a handy thing you can do in the action pull down to the right of columns. You can choose remove all columns and then just quickly add the ones you want. I suggest being consistent with the columns. And so if you're working with a sales team, there are probably a handful of columns that should be on every single report. You might want the opportunity name, the owner of the opportunity, the stage, the close date, the amount, the next step if you use it. My suggestion would be to always include those and then always include them in the same order. And it makes life so much better for the end user because every report that they go use has this very familiar thing. If you work with list views and you're creating those, the same technique is useful for list views to have the same columns in the same order. It just makes people's lives easier. The other thing, again, is like to not be sloppy with unimportant columns. If I come in here and I go to create a new report and I choose opportunities and I start the report, 100% of the time, there are columns here that I don't care about. Like in this dev org, owner role is empty. So I might want to remove that. And maybe if my opportunity naming scheme includes the account name, which it doesn't here, but let's say that it did, I'd probably want to get rid of that. And so on, you just go right through. And if you're creating a report on one opportunities, why would we show probability of 100% for all of them? Why would we show an expected revenue that's the same as the amount for all of them? I might even argue that the stage might not even be important if they're all closed won. Why do we have to see it? So you make the decision about what's important, but I see a lot of reports that have counterintuitive columns on them. So this is a real estate game. We want to get rid of columns that just aren't adding any value. Every inch of this real estate is precious. And again, we can just quickly remove all columns by using this action pull down to the right of the columns. And now I'm starting from scratch and I can just quickly add the ones that I want. So I want to add, where did my cursor go? There it is. Oh, okay. Just took a second to catch up. So if I want to choose, add the name and the owner and the stage, etc., I can just quickly add them back and get them exactly how I want them. All right. Another technique for driving adoption is to encourage the use of report descriptions. I really wish that this was a required field, and I've wished this for probably 15 years. You can write a sentence or two. You can see two examples here where there are descriptions, and you might just write a sentence that says, this report shows blah, 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 about what it is this report does. This is a gift to your end users. Just keep in mind that if you change the report, you might need to change the description slightly. I really wish this was required or at least encouraged. And think of this like the high watermark that we're aiming for here is describing each report as if we were describing it to a beloved family member who is sight impaired. You say, where in the world do you come up with that? Well, you take the time to explain something to somebody that you cared about. Well, that's what we should be doing with our report descriptions. The same is true with dashboard components. When you go create a new dashboard and you roll it out to an executive team, this is what it looks like to them. This is, I think, the cockpit of a space shuttle. And, I swear there have been times I've created something I thought was so great and people just don't know what to do with it. They won't, may not have the wherewithal to sort of understand it, or, what they really need are little life preservers. And within dashboard components, we have the ability to have a title. The title can be up to 80 characters. The subtitle can be up to 40 characters, and it's in a slightly smaller font below the title. The footers can be up to 255 characters. However, they're truncated, so they really shouldn't be 255 characters unless you have one going the full width of the dashboard. Just note that they get truncated. I will usually start footers with the word shows so that I don't have to waste words before that. It shows total open pipe by industry. Great. But these little footers can become a little lifeline to people as they're ramping up using your new dashboard. All right, another technique for driving adoption, and this is a big one. This one I learned the last software company I worked for. I did a lot of Excel VBA reporting where I was writing code in Excel that reached out to a SQL server, pulled in data and formatted it. And the leadership team was thrilled. They were super excited that they could see CRM data and report on it. But like when I said, can I just sit in one of your leadership meetings? What was so interesting, I figured out that there's nothing really that special going on in leadership meetings. B, that people are looking at your report and they don't always understand it, your report or dashboard. We should almost think of these as new systems that should be trained on when you unveil a new dashboard, and actually tell people the significance of the reports, the charts, if it's a dashboard, the components that you have. But really a great way to improve report and dashboard adoption is to sit in on these meetings and just to listen to people how they use it. You might ask to sit in the corner of the room and just listen. And if they say things like, wow, this is great, but if this could only blah, 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 or if I could see this way, I've sat in meetings like that and added dashboard filters that allow them to filter by country or region. You just listen for these little things. I think it's magical that you made the updates so quickly. So I'm curious if anybody has an experience asking. Has anybody been told no? Or has anybody had a positive experience? Maybe you could just write it in the chat, asking to sit in on a meeting where this is being used. The reports or dashboards you're creating have been used. Another one that I wish people would embrace sooner is trending. We've done a couple of dashboard dojos on trending. The QR codes for those sessions are up in the top right. All of the recordings are on the dashboard dojo site. There's a recordings tab and you can scroll through them. You can search through them. But there are many ways to do trending in Salesforce. This one down at the bottom is just opportunity close dates. I've grouped opportunity close date and opportunity close date 2. So I've grouped close date twice so that I get essentially a year over year sales bookings by month. And I can see the trends about which months are sort of weaker traditionally and which ones are stronger. There is an out of the box standard report type. It's been around for all the years I've worked on Salesforce, so 17 years. It's called opportunity trends. There are a handful of fields and opportunities that are always tracked, and we can use that to identify sort of trends within the pipeline. There's a feature that can be enabled called historical trending. We can see that down here in the bottom right, where you can see changes for key fields and show whether it's a positive change or a negative change in the red. Another one of the most popular Dōjōs we've done is on reporting snapshots. And you can see an example here of a snapshot. And this is 52 weeks of an open pipeline every Monday night, just snapshotting what is the open pipeline this week? What is the open pipeline this week? What is the open pipeline this week? And this is grouped by opportunity stage and by the amount. And you can just see the history of the company. This particular example, the company doubled its sales in this year, when what's so interesting is even though they were closing deals and winning deals quite heavily, the volume of the pipeline is actually quite steady. And these are the interesting, details that are revealed with trending. All right. So another one that we've done this year, this was back, I think in January, we did a Dōjō on embedded analytics, and the QR code's up in the top right. So reports can be literally embedded anywhere in Lightning Pages. I have embedded 25 report charts in an account layout. And it was just because I got bored that I didn't keep going. I don't recommend embedding 25, but you might have a couple, and you can use the dynamic component visibility so that, like this one here, it's a customer, and because it's a customer, they have utilization on whatever our platform is. And so we'll show that utilization. But if it's not a customer, if it's a partner or a prospect, using that dynamic component visibility, when you add the report chart to the page layout, you could basically say, don't show it if it's a prospect, because they won't have it. It'll be blank. And it just, the page layout just basically closes around it. Once you've created some great reports and dashboards, it's very, very easy to embed these within pages. A really nice example of that would be taking advantage of creating reports with my filters, creating a dashboard that's essentially intended to use only these my filter reports, and then making a dynamic dashboard. So I can tell this is a dynamic dashboard because of the change link here. So when I log in, let's say I'm a sales manager, it'll run it as me, but I don't own any deals. So I can quickly click on the change link. If I have 10 sales reps reporting to me, I can go run it as Mary, and run it as Bill, and run it as Tom, to see what their numbers look like. So dashboards can be embedded into home pages, and then also there's another type of page layout called an app page where we can put them. All right. So in the last session that we did in the Dōjō, we covered Salesforce Mobile. We can do a number of very quick setup steps. So this would be something a sysadmin would do to review the list of tabs. The list of tabs just out of the box is probably a little heavy, and you might move around the report and dashboard tabs. You might also introduce the newer analytics tab that came out earlier this year. There is a mobile home tab that can be enabled, and we can see the screenshot of that over on the right. With the mobile home tab, a user can pin their favorite report, and you can choose the favorite report by clicking on the pencil and choosing some other report. What's unique about what they do with the mobile app is it'll actually show you the delta since the last time you looked at it on the mobile app. So it was 29 minutes ago. And I was just in North Africa speaking. So this is the Moroccan dirham. in this screenshot. But you can see that the sum of the amount has gone down, whereas the average of the amount has gone up. And the record count, this number doesn't make any sense, but I still think this is pretty cool. The beta has really changed what the mobile reports look like. They were kind of clunky before the beta. The beta is very simple to enable. So the instructions for enabling the beta, you can see here in this QR code. You can also just go to the Winter 23 release notes. So what can a user do with Salesforce Mobile, the mobile app? They can search, they can run, they can favorite both reports and dashboards. They can see these changes like I'm showing here. They can pin the report to the home tab. With the Winter 23 beta, they've really optimized how the reports work. So that beta is the enhanced reports beta, and it's really quite good. They've sped up the reports and they've just improved the experience interacting with them. The last one I'll talk about is in-app guidance. Has anybody played with this? Maybe either raise your hands. Has anybody tried this out? All right, so Natalie and Steve, awesome. Would you guys just, looks like Rebecca as well, cool. I'm curious if you have any positive or negative experience with it. Maybe if we lower your hands, I'm curious, would any of you be willing to share a positive and negative experience with it? Any of the three that just raised their hands? If you want to raise your hand again. So Natalie says too soon to tell. Okay. I think we had Rebecca and Steve. I don't know if you guys have any experience with, had any positive or negatives. So what is this? So in-app guidance allows us to embed guidance directly within the tabs. And this is not specific to reports and dashboards. This can be used throughout the platform. Salesforce you've probably noticed as you've been clicking around in Salesforce that a lot of this stuff seems to pop up nowadays. Well, you can see here my very goofy example of it where, I want to let the users know that this search capability on the tab is category specific. And so I was able to include some media. So I grabbed an image off the web. I added some text to the image. This could just as easily be a video. And you can add some text such as, did you know that the search is category specific? The categories on the left, such as recent, all reports, etc., define the scope of the search. And you can have just an exit button such as, I get it. Thanks. We have the ability when creating in-app guidance to choose how the prompt is routed on the page. It can be targeted, it can be floating, or it can be docked. And each one of those works a little differently. The one here that I've chosen, I think, is floating. And I think I put it up in the top center of the page. I wasn't able to target it to the search box for some reason. I could target it to buttons, but not the search box. And I wasn't entirely sure why. But I thought I'd show you this. So why did I leave this? Let's go over here. So if we go under setup and we expand user engagement, and why don't I give myself some more room? So up here, you see under setup user engagement, there's adoption assistance, guidance center, help menu, and then this in-app guidance. So this is what we're going to use. And if I choose the in-app guidance, I have one that I've created. It's easy enough to create these. But this one that I've created, it says report search context is the name. It's a floating prompt. It's tied to one specific app. So what is an app? An app is one of these things up here, which is just a collection of tabs. So this one will only appear when somebody's using the reporting app. And this is an app that I created just for the Dōjō. I could also have this be for any app, but it's just a choice that I made. And where are we routing this? We're routing this in-app guidance on the report home, which is essentially the report tab. Who created it? How many times has it been viewed? I don't know what completes has to do with this. Is this tied to an App Exchange app? No. and is it active? So you can actually create many, many of these. If I come in here, actually, before we go into there, let's actually look at settings for a second. So do we want to have a delay between in-app guidance? So we can change the length of time between in-app guidance. By default, a prompt or walkthrough appears to a user no more than once every 24 hours. My suggestion would be to think through this carefully. People don't want to see the same things that they have to get rid of all the time. So you might adjust that. And then you can choose to enable or disable all of the Salesforce stuff, or the enable or disable the custom stuff. So what I'm going to show you is an example of custom. And if we come in here and go under edit, and what we see is the page where I have created the in-app guidance. It's showing me the example of the in-app guidance. And I tried to make this a targeted prompt. And for whatever reason, I can manage this app. Navigate the page you want, target, click mode, target. Okay, here we go. So if I go to this targeting mode, I can highlight buttons, but for whatever reason, I didn't seem to be able to highlight the search that I was most interested in. But we can, scroll around and look for things that we can target. I'm going to leave this a floating prompt. When you create it as a floating prompt, you choose, again, where is this going to appear? So it's only showing on this page, the reports tab, and it's only showing on within this app. And an app is a collection of tabs. So I have a collection of tabs called reporting, and it's only going to show for that app. And then where do you want to put this? So I have it at the top center, and you can see that the way down here in the bottom right hand corner, you can see that the page is organized into basically 9 grids. And I've just put it up in that top center, which is around where the search report will be for most users. So my ideal would be to figure out the targeted prompt. I didn't figure it out, so this is a close second. So there are 2 pages of settings to do for in-app guidance. The second page is, what do you want to call it? So I have here report search is category specific. You know what? I think I'll make that capitalized. And I'll put an exclamation, no, 2 exclamation. No, it looks like I ran out of space. So it's telling you can have 36 characters. So that's it. So I could fit 1 exclamation. And then you have your body text, and you can upload an image. So I uploaded this very pathetic image that I created using Snagit. It encourages you, it's actually required to have alt text, and that alt text is the same for any, if you use Twitter, LinkedIn, or creating web pages that you want to, if somebody has their images turned off, or if there's like a speech reader for somebody that is sight impaired, it'll actually read what the image is for them, this text. And then we can choose, do we want the text above the image or not? So I think what I'm going to do, because his eyes are looking up, I'm going to say that the image is below the body text so that his eyes are looking at this. I think that'll be more impactful here. And then finally, you can say what you want the button to say to basically dismiss this. So I get it, thanks, thanks. And we can only have 15 characters. I can't even write the word thanks. So I get it, thanks, exclamation point. Let's put 2 in there. Awesome. So now what I want to do is come up here and save it to save my changes. I might go ahead and say that this is, what's this other little thing? Ooh, snooze. So your users can basically say, you know what, I don't need to see this until next week. That's too bad that you can't go out further. Never again. Snooze in perpetuity. Okay, so let's actually go back and look at this, the preview. There is a preview tool built into the in-app guidance. And if I come up here and choose preview, it's basically just going to open a window as an end user would see. And there is our prompts. Because this is in the center of the page, it's a few inches away from the recent reports. You know what, if I make my window bigger, it'll be closer, or it'll overlap. But basically, what I wanted here is to encourage people. A lot of people don't realize that the search context is dependent on these categories on the left. Right now it says search recent reports. but if I choose all reports, it now searches all reports. And my prompt went away. But anyway, that's in-app guidance. And what I was thinking about is, in introducing the new analytics tab, in trying to encourage people to do more with dashboards or do more with reports, you could take advantage of this and actually, provide some guidance that's custom to your system to help people take advantage of this. All right. All right, so we covered a lot of ground today, and I'm curious, for those of you that are here, which of these you might take advantage of, the stuff that we looked at today. Kyle, could you run the poll again, or the next poll?
Yep, I just launched it, so it should be open to everyone now.
And this is a multiple choice one, so if you think you might ask to sit in on meetings or take advantage of favorites, or are there any of these that might help move the needle in your org? All right, looks like we've got about almost 2/3. We'll just another second, we'll get up everybody that wants to respond. I think a few people have wandered off to get a sandwich. That's okay. All right, so you're showing our results now?
Yep.
So it looks like cleaning up the report and dashboard tabs. Yes, please, take a look at that. The recording. So on the Dashboard Dojo site, on the recordings tab, scroll down. It was sometime in the spring. It might have been April or May that we did the session just sharing how we cleaned up at OpFocus, how we went through and cleaned up the report and dashboard tabs. I love the idea of organizing the report and dashboards tabs, especially around sharing, getting the sharing right. Your executives see more than they should. They don't need to see everything. It makes it so much less likely that they'll use your reports and dashboards because they're just inundated with them. It's hard for them to find them. So I love that people are interested in using favorites and teaching their users on favorites. Managing real estate, it didn't get a high billing here in this group, but I encourage you to get rid of get rid of columns that just aren't adding any value to your reports. Really think about every column. It's like if you had to pay $1 for every column or $10 for every column that appeared in a report, you'd probably, get rid of ones that just aren't adding any value. Okay, great. And using the report and dashboard descriptions and sitting in on meetings, I hope that more of you can do it. It's such an interesting thing. It was a real eye opener when at that last software company, when I realized, like, wow, these guys are a bunch of jokers, running this business, and they often people misunderstand elements of dashboards. They're just not clear on the meaning of something, and you could chime in and explain it, or you can also react to things that they say that, oh, it'd be really great to see it this way or that way. Awesome. All right, so I've got a class coming up in February. So the 15th and 16th, 2-day hands-on Salesforce reporting workshop. It's been a lot of fun doing that for years. A lot of this stuff for 2 days. We have a Dōjō session. I thought to take a break in December. And in the summer, we had done our first Masters in the Dōjō series. And we had an old friend of mine actually from high school who's been in the Salesforce world forever, Ezra Kenigsberg, join us. We'll have Evan Ponter join us January 11th. And so that registration is up on the Dashboard Dojo site. Evan just knows a ton, and we'll do a bit of an interview, and we'll have him doing some demo of cool stuff that he's thinking about. There's the QR code here to register for the upcoming sessions. Awesome. So if we have some time, if anyone has any questions, if you want to come off mute and talk about something, it'd be interesting to hear what you're thinking about. If anybody wanted to clarify anything from today, happy to talk about it. Kyle, I'll put you on the spot. Is there anything that you might try out in your role as an events manager?
Trying to think of what would be most applicable.
All right, I'll let you think. While talking about that, I'll share, we're just starting up a podcast at OpFocus, and that's been really interesting to work on. So we'll have our first session posted. It's called the RevOps Rockstars, and very excited to get that underway. I think we have about 18 people lined up for just getting it off the ground, and lots of interesting interviews. Anyone have any questions? Anything they want to dig into? All right, Carol, maybe you could take Carol off mute.
Yep, give me 1 second. Should be able to unmute yourself.
Yep. How's it going, Carol?
Good, thank you. Love these sessions. Thank you so much for having them. Mine is partially in this. Do you remember the folder? I forget what it's called in Lightning, but it used to be like the public folder, report folder.
Mm-hmm.
And in Classic, my understanding was that it was only, it could be visible to external users as well. So we always told people not to put things in it. It has a different name, same functionality, I'm assuming, in Lightning.
Yeah.
So the question is twofold. Is it still available to external users? Is there a way that we can remove it? And if we're doing some of this cleaning stuff, that is so important, can we remove that folder or make it not visible to people who don't need to access it?
Oh, that's such a good question. I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's a great question. And for years in Classic, it was called unfiled public reports. And more people that I knew referred to it as unified public reports for whatever reason. That's a weird little aside. But it would be a cesspool of stuff, all these like one-off things that people created, and they didn't know where to put it, so they put it there. There's absolutely a reason why Salesforce defaults when you create a report to put it into your private folder. I think I'm going to have to look this one up, Carol, and put it onto and tweet it out this afternoon, because I don't know the answer to it. I don't know if anyone else on the call knows the answer to it. My assumption would be that things are visible, and we saw that with list views, definitely. With list views, each list view specifically in Enterprise and above, you can adjust the view permissions of them. And we do that with folders in reports and dashboards. But of course, that public reports folder, which exists for reports but not dashboards, we don't have any control directly of that. So Natalie's asking to look at a slide. So Carol, I'll dig into that one and try to tweet that out before tomorrow, if that's okay. It's such a good question. I just don't want to answer incorrectly, knowing that things changed with the move to Lightning. Here we go. Was there a QR code? Oh, so I don't think favorites had a QR code, but in help, if you just searched on favorites, you'd see a lot of the similar information, Natalie. Any other questions? Well, I hope you guys are able to join the January 11th with Evan Ponter. He's a master of reports and dashboards. He also writes a blog called reportforce.blog. He speaks at events around the world on reports and dashboards. He also talks about process automation, which is super cool, but really a knowledgeable person. So I hope you guys have a great holiday season coming up, and we'll regroup in December. I hope you can join us. Thanks so much, Kyle.
Of course. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.